A vast gray parking lot sits mostly empty in the center of a busy city block. The land around it thrives. The lot just sits there, costing everyone something invisible. Parking feels free when you pull in and pay nothing. But the land under that lot has a real value. Someone is absorbing the cost so you do not have to. Land in a city is not empty by nature. It is held empty by a decision. Every parking space is a choice to leave value, sitting unused on the ground. Think of city land like a dense shelf. Every item placed on it generates activity. A parking lot removes the shelf entirely and replaces it with a flat, unproductive floor. Cities set minimum parking requirements by law. Developers must build a certain number of spaces before they can build anything else. That rule shapes everything that follows. A restaurant must provide 30 parking spaces before it can open. A grocery store needs even more. The parking requirement often exceeds the building footprint itself. When developers must build parking first, costs rise before a single customer arrives. Those costs get passed into higher rents and higher prices for everyone inside the building. Parking structures cost tens of thousands per space to build. Underground spaces cost even more. That money comes from somewhere. It quietly enters the price of everything nearby. A coffee shop with free parking must charge more per cup to survive. A shopper who never drives there still pays that cost. The price is inside every item on the menu. Free parking does not eliminate cost. It redistributes it. People who walk, cycle, or take transit end up subsidizing the parking used by people who drive. The cost moves invisibly. This redistribution happens in apartment buildings too. Parking spaces are often bundled into rent even for tenants who do not own a car. You pay for the space whether you use it or not. Studies show that bundled parking raises rent by a measurable amount in most cities. The parking space costs money monthly. That cost sits inside the rent number every time. Free parking also changes where people choose to go. When driving is cheaper than taking transit, more people drive. More driving means more demand for parking. The cycle feeds itself steadily. Transit systems need riders to stay financially healthy. Fewer riders mean thinner budgets and less frequent service. Less frequent service pushes even more people toward driving their own cars. This is a self-reinforcing loop. Free parking encourages driving. Driving weakens transit. Weaker transit encourages more drive. Each step feels logical on its own, but the total outcome is expensive. Cities with high parking minimums tend to spread outward rather than upward. Land gets consumed by low-density development. Distances between destinations grow. Walking becomes impractical over time. When destinations are far apart, people need a car to reach them. When people need cars, they need places to park. Cities quietly design themselves around the car without realizing it. The economic cost of all this space is enormous. Asphalt does not generate tax revenue. A parking lot sitting idle produces nothing for the city budget throughout the entire year. Property tax is typically based on what a property produces or could produce. A dense building pays significantly more than a flat lot. Free parking pulls the city tax base steadily downward. Cities with lower tax bases must find revenue elsewhere. Services get trimmed. Road maintenance slows. Parks receive less funding. The cost of free parking shows up as a reduction in everything else. Some economists call this the hidden tax of free parking. Everyone pays for it, but the payment is invisible. It arrives inside rent, inside prices, and inside the slow decline of public services over time. If you find this kind of explanation useful, subscribing means you will see the next one when it arrives. These mechanisms repeat in different systems, and each one is worth understanding clearly. Now, consider what happens to the land value itself. Prime city land near transit or shops is worth far more than land used for parking. Every lot represents potential that is being deliberately left unused. Land economists use a concept called highest and best use. It means that land should produce the most value it possibly can given its location. A parking lot almost never qualifies as the best use. Interestingly, many parking lots are owned by the same people who own the surrounding buildings. They keep the lots empty because a future development deal may be worth more than current activity. A vacant lot used for parking keeps neighboring land values lower. Dense active neighbors raise property values around them. Empty lots create a quiet drag on the entire surrounding block over time. What happens when a city removes its parking minimums? Developers suddenly have more flexibility. Some choose to build less parking, others choose to build none at all, and let the market decide. Several major cities have already eliminated or drastically reduced their parking minimums. The results are measurable. Housing becomes slightly more affordable. Retail appears in places it could not exist before. The core argument against parking minimums is simple. They force developers to build something that may not be needed. Every mandatory space has a mandatory cost attached to it from day one. Opponents of removing minimums argue that without rules, neighborhoods get overwhelmed by cars spilling onto streets. That concern is real, but it reflects what happens when driving is already too cheap to begin with. Price parking is the alternative many economists prefer. When parking has a visible cost, people use it more carefully. Spaces turn over faster. Availability improves. Revenue flows back to the city. San Francisco tested a program that adjusts parking prices based on demand. Busy blocks cost more. Quiet blocks cost less. Drivers found spaces faster. Circling traffic dropped measurably in those areas. Circling for parking is a hidden cost in itself. Drivers burning fuel while searching for a free space contribute to congestion, emissions, and time loss. The free space at the end of the search was never truly free. Traffic engineers estimate that a significant portion of urban congestion in commercial areas comes specifically from drivers searching for parking. The act of finding the free space creates the traffic jam outside it. Parking revenue, when it exists, can be redirected to the surrounding neighborhood. Some cities use parking meter income to fund sidewalk improvements, tree planting, and local business support directly. The economics of parking connect to housing affordability in a direct way. When parking is free and mandatory, it adds to development costs. That cost travels upward into every unit eventually built above it. Removing parking minimums in residential zones tends to increase the supply of smaller and more affordable housing units. Developers can now build on smaller plots without needing to dedicate space to cars first. The urban economist Donald Shoup spent decades studying this specific problem. His conclusion was that minimum parking requirements are a policy that produces costs larger than its visible benefits in most cities. His central idea was that free parking is only free to the person using it. For everyone else, it is a tax, a subsidy, a transfer of value from the many to the few who happen to arrive by car. Parking policy also affects which kinds of businesses can survive in a city. Small neighborhood shops do not need large lots. They need foot traffic. Parking minimums often eliminate the conditions foot traffic needs to thrive. A street designed for cars moves vehicles efficiently, but produces little economic activity per meter. A street designed for pedestrians generates more commercial transactions per block in almost every measured comparison. As cities age, the parking lots left over from mid-century planning become prime redevelopment opportunities. Converting a surface lot into mixed-use housing is one of the most direct paths to urban renewal available today. The transition is not simple or fast. Parking habits are deeply embedded. People plan their trips around the expectation of free parking. Changing that expectation takes time, pricing, and alternative options that actually work. Cities that have successfully shifted away from parking minimums invested heavily in transit quality at the same time. The two moves reinforce each other. You cannot remove the incentive to drive without offering a real alternative first. The empty parking lot is still there in most cities. It still sits on valuable land. It still costs everyone a little. The question of what replaces it has not been fully answered yet anywhere in the world.